The lights are dim. An empty arena hums with silence. Somewhere in the distance, a ball echoes against hardwood again and again and again. Long before the championships, before the roaring crowds, before the name became legend, there was just a kid chasing something he couldn't yet explain. He would grow up to win 5 NBA championships. He would score 81 points in a single game. He would become one of the most feared competitors the sport had ever seen. But none of that is where this story truly begins. Because behind the highlights, behind the trophies, there was something far more complicated. A young man obsessed with greatness, only to realize, years later, that greatness alone was never enough. What happens when you achieve everything you once dreamed of and still feel like something is missing? This is not just the story of a basketball player. This is the story of obsession, failure, reinvention, and ultimately, legacy. And by the end of this journey, you may find yourself asking a different question. What does it really mean to be remembered? Kobe Bryant. Before the fame. Before Los Angeles, before the world knew his name, there was a quiet gym in Italy. The sound of sneakers on concrete echoed through empty courts, where a young boy spent hours alone, chasing perfection no one had asked of him. While other kids were playing, he was studying, watching, mimicking, repeating. Not for applause, but for something deeper he couldn't yet define. Kobe Bryant was born into basketball, but not into comfort. His father, a professional player, took the family overseas, where Kobe grew up far from the spotlight of American sports. In Italy, he learned more than just the game. He learned discipline, language, and what it meant to be different. And different, he always was. When he returned to the United States as a teenager, he wasn't just another high school player. At Lower Merion High School in Pennsylvania, he became a phenomenon. Crowds filled small gyms just to watch a kid who played like he had already seen the future. But with attention came pressure. Every move was watched, every game analyzed. And yet, while others saw a rising star, Kobe saw a question he needed to answer. What if I never test myself at the highest level? In 1996, at just 17 years old, he made a decision that would shock the basketball world. He would skip college, no safety net, no backup plan, straight to the NBA. It wasn't confidence, it was necessity. Because for Kobe, the fear wasn't failure. The fear was doubt. What if he never knew how far he could go? Draft night came with no guarantees. Teams hesitated. A high school guard had never made this leap before. One by one, names were called, but not his. Until finally, pick number 13. It wasn't the beginning of glory. It was the beginning of proving everyone wrong. Traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, Kobe entered a world faster, stronger, and far more unforgiving than anything he had known. The NBA wasn't waiting for him. It wasn't impressed by potential. And in his first games, it showed. Limited minutes, missed shots, moments of hesitation. For the first time in his life, he looked human, lost, even. But what people didn't see was what happened after the games, long after the arena emptied, when the cameras were gone. Kobe stayed, shooting, running, repeating, again and again, long past exhaustion. Because while others were trying to survive the league, he was preparing to conquer it. Still, the league had one more lesson waiting, a lesson that would define everything that came next: failure. On the biggest stage, and it would arrive sooner than anyone expected. The moment came under bright lights, and it didn't go the way anyone expected. A playoff game. The pressure was real. The crowd was loud, and with the game on the line, a teenager stepped forward, fearless, unshaken, ready to prove he belonged. He took the shot. Air ball, then another. Air ball, and another, and another, 4 times. For most players, that moment would have been the beginning of doubt, a scar that lingers, a reason to hesitate the next time the spotlight finds you. But Kobe Bryant wasn't built like most players. Where others saw embarrassment, he saw information. Where others felt fear, he found fuel. That night didn't break him. It revealed him. In the months that followed, something shifted. Not in his talent, but in his understanding. He studied his failure with a cold, almost surgical honesty. His legs weren't strong enough. His body wasn't ready for the grind of an NBA season, so he adapted. More training, more discipline, more obsession. While the world moved on, Kobe went deeper, and slowly, the results began to show. By his second and third seasons, he was no longer just a young prospect. He was becoming a star, an all-star. In fact, at just 18 years old, the youngest in NBA history at the time. But individual success was only part of the story, because in Los Angeles, something much bigger was forming. A partnership. Shaquille O'Neal, power and precision, dominance and finesse, together. They became one of the most unstoppable duos the game had ever seen, and under the guidance of Phil Jackson. The Lakers weren't just winning, they were taking over. From 2000 to 2002, the Lakers captured 3 consecutive championships. A dynasty was born, and Kobe, still in his early 20s, was now standing on top of the basketball world. The comparisons came quickly. Michael Jordan, the next face of the NBA, the heir to greatness. And on the surface, it all made sense. The footwork, the fadeaway, the killer instinct. It was all there. But beneath the success, something else was growing. Tension. Because greatness, when shared, doesn't always feel complete. The partnership with Shaq, as dominant as it was, came with friction. 2 superstars, 2 different personalities, 2 different visions of leadership. And as the championships piled up, so did the cracks. At the same time, the spotlight around Kobe grew harsher. Media scrutiny intensified. Personal challenges surfaced. Every move on and off the court was dissected. For the first time since entering the league, Kobe wasn't just fighting opponents, he was fighting perception. And eventually, everything would collide. The dynasty would fall. The team would fracture, and Kobe Bryant would be left alone, with something to prove all over again. Silence can be louder than any crowd. For Kobe Bryant, that silence came after the noise faded, the championships, the spotlight, the dominance. What remained was tension, criticism, and a growing sense that everything he had built could disappear just as quickly. The dynasty was over. Shaquille O'Neal was gone. The locker room was divided. And suddenly, the question wasn't how great Kobe could become. It was whether he could lead at all. The media didn't hold back. Teammates questioned him. Fans began to wonder if he had been carried by something bigger than himself. For the first time in years, Kobe Bryant stood alone. And in that isolation, something changed. He stopped trying to fit expectations, stopped trying to be understood. It became simple. Me against the world. On the court, that mindset turned into something the league had never quite seen before. There was no hesitation anymore, no sharing of responsibility. Every possession, every shot, every moment was his. And then came the night. January 22nd, 2006. A regular season game against the Toronto Raptors. Nothing about it suggested history. No finals stakes, no playoff implications. Just another night. Until it wasn't. Shot after shot began to fall. Difficult shots. Contested shots. Impossible shots. The rhythm was different. The energy shifted. By halftime, it was impressive. By the third quarter, it was unreal. By the fourth, it was legendary. 81 points. The second highest scoring game in NBA history. But the number wasn't the story. Because this wasn't just scoring, this was a statement. A declaration that he didn't need a system, didn't need a co-star, didn't need validation. He could carry everything. And for an entire season, he did. Game after game. He attacked defenses with a level of aggression that felt almost personal. 40-point nights became routine. 50-point explosions felt inevitable. Every arena became a stage, and every opponent a challenge to dominate. But beneath the brilliance, there was still something unresolved. Because proving the world wrong is not the same as proving yourself right. The wins didn't come as easily. The team struggled. The playoffs ended early. And once again, The same question returned, louder than before. Can he win as the leader? For Kobe, the answer wouldn't come through scoring. It wouldn't come through isolation. It would require something far more difficult: trust, growth, and the willingness to become something he had never truly been before. Not just a superstar, but a leader. Failure on a global stage hits differently. For the United States, basketball was never supposed to be questioned. For decades, dominance was expected. Gold medals were routine, until suddenly, they weren't. The losses in 2004 and 2006 didn't just sting, they shifted the narrative. The world was catching up, and for the first time, USA basketball looked vulnerable. That's when Kobe Bryant stepped in, not as the league's top scorer, not as a superstar chasing numbers, but as something entirely different: a leader. When he joined Team USA in 2008, the roster was already filled with talent. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, the best players in the world. But talent wasn't the problem. Identity was. From the very first practice, Kobe changed the tone, while others were adjusting. He was already locked in. Defense, hustle, intensity. He wasn't there to shine, he was there to set a standard. There's a moment his teammates would never forget. Early morning, after a late-night workout, most players were still waking up. Kobe had already finished another session. Ice on his knees, sweat still fresh, and just like that, the message was clear. This wasn't about talent anymore. It was about commitment, game after game. He took on the toughest defensive assignments. He pressured full court. He sacrificed shots. He did the things superstars rarely volunteer to do, because he understood something others didn't yet fully grasp. Winning requires more than greatness. It requires accountability. In the gold medal game against Spain, with everything on the line, the moment found him again. The pressure, the noise, the expectation. And just like always, he embraced it. Big shots, tough plays, complete control. Team USA won gold. But more importantly, they regained respect. And at the center of it all was Kobe Bryant. Not the scorer, not the icon, but the example. For the first time in his career, the world saw a different version of him. Not just a player chasing legacy, but a man shaping others. And in doing so, he discovered something that had been missing all along. Leadership wasn't about control. It was about influence. And that realization would change everything that came next. The final buzzer doesn't always signal the end. Sometimes, it reveals what truly mattered all along. By the time Kobe Bryant entered the final chapter of his career, the body that once moved with precision and power had begun to slow. Injuries piled up. The game that once felt effortless now demanded everything he had left. And still, he kept going. Not for records, not for validation, but for something much more personal. To finish on his own terms. In 2016, he made it official. This would be his final season. What followed wasn't just a farewell tour. It was a celebration, a reflection, and in many ways, a goodbye between a player and the world he had impacted for 2 decades. Every arena stood for him. Every crowd, whether they once cheered or booed, showed respect because they understood. They weren't just watching a player retire, they were watching a standard leave the game. And then, one final night, April 13th, 2016. Los Angeles, Staples Center. The expectations were simple. Just one last glimpse, one last moment. But Kobe Bryant had never followed expectations. Shot after shot, he kept attacking. Even as fatigue set in, even as the game pushed back, he refused to slow down. Because this wasn't just a game, this was his final statement. 60 points. Not efficient, not perfect, but unforgettable. As he walked off the court for the last time, he didn't just leave behind numbers or championships. He left behind something far more powerful, a mindset. Years later, the world would be shaken by the news no one was ready to hear. His passing in 2020 wasn't just a loss for basketball. It was a loss felt across cultures, generations, and continents. Because Kobe Bryant had become more than an athlete. He had become a symbol, of discipline, of resilience, of relentless pursuit. And maybe that was the real legacy all along. Not the 5 championships, not the 81-point game, not even the Hall of Fame, but the idea that greatness is built day by day, moment by moment, through choices no one else sees. So the question isn't how many points he scored. The question is, what will you do with the time you have? Because if his story teaches us anything, it's that legacy isn't given, it's earned, one day at a time.